is the moment we waited for. Everything you want is right here. We gon' give them what they came for. We gon' take it up from last year. Shoot 'em my shot, boy, I'm long range. Me and the team on the same thing. Stayed down, never switched up. Only thing changed was the game. I'm in the zone now. Nothing can change what we on now. When I pull up, know it's going down. Foot on the gas, ain't no slowing down. Aiming for greatness, no settling.
What up, what up, what up? Yo, is the intro still playing? That was weird. I don't know how that happened, but it is what it is. So YouTube was still playing in the background. So I was watching myself apparently on YouTube just a second ago. So I apologize for that. I was trying to figure out why everything was echoing. But what up, everybody? It's your boy Phil All Caps back with another episode of the Knicks Nightcap. And it's going to look a little bit different today because it's been a few weeks since we did the show with the holidays and everything like that was going on. And so Apollo and Eru hit me up yesterday and they're like, yo, when are we going to be back? I was like, we're back tomorrow. And they're like, oh, snap. I don't know if I could do it. And so they texted saying that they can't make it today. But it's all good because I had already planned on this being a collaboration episode with our Nick of Time family. If you watched the show, you know that they were not able to do their pregame, their postgame yesterday. Things just came up. So this is going to kind of be a merger of the Knicks Nightcap and the postgame from yesterday. So thank you all for tuning in. If you can, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, retweet this, post this on Instagram, let people know that we're live. Let's continue to build this community, continue to build this chat. Happy New Year to y'all that I haven't gotten to talk to so far in the new year. We appreciate you all. So without further ado, while we wait for our guy Jay Ellis, I'm going to bring up my brother from another mother, Mr. Lee Escafreaking-Beto. What up? What up?
What up, baby? Gunshots in the chat for our Knicks, notching another win in the column. Really happy that we were able to take care of business and not having trap games beat up on the teams that we should be beating up on. So the vibes are immaculate heading into Friday's game against the OKC Thunder.
Yeah, you know, and that's a great way to go into it because there were some rocky things that we were dealing with in the early parts of the season, trying to figure out like how long until this chemistry actually hit. And we're starting to see that chemistry that we, were longing for, that we were wanting. I know there's still people that are skeptical and people that are just like, yeah, but we still need more. We still need this. We still need that. But I'm excited. I'm excited that we are in a 9-game win streak right now. Yes, a lot of those teams are teams that we should be destroying. But it's good to see that we are destroying them. It would be a concern if we were having this show after losing 2 games to the Washington Wizards that are a complete dumpster fire of a franchise right now. But we're not, we're beating the teams that we should. And I think now that we're going into some tougher games, this is a perfect time to be going into that, because that chemistry that we wanted is starting to happen. You're seeing guys, play together in a way that we've never seen before. I think it was 2 games ago. I think we had 4 players that had over 20-something points. And so to be able to see this team start to click and seeing guys become versions of themselves that we never thought that we would see, like Josh Hart, especially. Like seeing what Josh Hart has become this season is incredible to watch. So let's talk about that last game. We went up against Utah. What are your takeaways, your main takeaway in that victory against Utah?
I'm going to start off and address something that you said in your initial monologue about people thinking that we need other things. That, in my opinion, that perception comes from a lot of Knicks fans not watching the rest of the NBA and not watching the rest of the NBA consistently, not just the season, but years prior. Because if you look in the modern era, and I think things really accelerated to a new epoch with the Denver championship, because that's when a team really went 5 out, spaced the floor, and was playing a lot of motion offense, a lot of off-ball cutting, and it resembles a 3-point barrage and volume that we're seeing this season which is, again, at an all-time high. That championship and the Boston Celtics of last year, two teams that I think most NBA fans would agree, dominant, only had one player off the bench that averaged 9 or 10 points. Denver had it. It rotated between KCP and Bruce Brown. One of them was starting some games, other one off the bench, but they both averaged 10. And then Boston only had Al Horford, who averaged 9 points. Peyton Pritchard averaged 6 points last season in the postseason. So when I looked at that team and I looked at us, we have one guy averaging double figures and Deuce, 10 points. But we don't need any other big wings or a sixth man or a scoring threat, because the last two most dominant offensive juggernauts that won championships only had one guy on the bench who was averaging double figures, especially Boston. Boston steamrolled through the Dallas Mavericks. That was, to me, even more of a gap between them than Boston, than Denver and Miami the year prior. There was no chance Dallas would run beat Boston, and Boston had a historically badass offense with only one double-digit score off the bench. So I think we're fully complete. Mitchell Robinson gives us a whole nother dynamic defensively and offensive rebounding wise, which brings us back to where we were before we got Karl-Anthony Towns. We were more relying on those second chance points to the paint, and offensive rebounding. And we have the option to trade him or swap him, or maybe trade him for additional bench depth or feature picks. I don't know. But if we keep him, no team can match up with us 1 through 10, in my opinion. It's the best 10-man rotation, best starting five in the NBA. We're a juggernaut offensively. We're starting to become a juggernaut defensively. Precious Achiuwa, Landry Shamet, Cameron Payne, and Deuce McBride. What bench is better than that? And if you can name one, we're still top five, minimum top three, in my opinion. I think we're a really complete team. Everyone plays really well without each other, and that leads to Utah. Without Brunson, without McBride, with the starting rotating guard of Cameron Payne and a rookie, Tyler Kolek, off the bench, we still stomped the Utah Jazz and really showed the type of attribute that I saw the Lakers have in the 2000s, the San Antonio Spurs have for about 15 years, the Heatles, the Golden State Warriors death lineup. There's that other gear they can switch to, and that foot stays on that neck until the final buzzer rings. And this Knicks team is starting to develop that, where when they need to in that second half, they adjust on whatever defense is being thrown at them, whatever one-on-one scoring is happy with Jordan Clarkson, whatever volume shooting is happy with Mark Interception, they adjust. And when that foot steps on that neck, there's no coming back.
And you know, that's a great point, because you talk about the depth of our roster. And we're seeing something that we, besides our players, never thought we'd see, even in the start of the season. And that is a 9-man Tibbs rotation, like this far into the season. Like with Shamet coming back in, like he's getting minutes. So many people were like, well, Shamet's not going to play when he gets there. Like there's no minutes for him. And yet Tibbs is finding minutes. So things are changing, seeing growth, not only in our players, but also in our coach, in some of the decisions that he's making. And so if you look at it, you know, I was listening to a podcast earlier, and they were talking about possible things that we could do before the deadline. Okay. And some of them that actually would do any good for us, it wasn't a 1-for-1 trade. It was, you know, we would have to give up Mitch and this for that player. And then you're like, wait a minute, but that doesn't make sense. Like that player is already contributing more than enough that we don't know if that player that we would be giving 2 up for is going to even contribute what Precious is currently attributing. So why would we include Precious in that deal? You know, so there's a lot of questions of like what we're going to do. And we'll talk about that a little later. But even with, you know, Mitch being gone this far into the season, we're still a half a game behind Boston, like for the second spot in the East. And that's because Cleveland is on like this ridiculous, like fairy tale Disney season right now. So, you know, they're leaps and bounds better, you know, stat wise than pretty much anyone in the league. But for that second spot against last year's champions, we're only a half game behind, and they're currently losing to the Timberwolves. So at the end of tonight, let's go Julius Randle, let's go Dante DiVincenzo. At the end of the night, we could be in the second spot in the East. And that's huge. You know, that's huge for a team that was pretty new and still trying to figure things out. And things looked pretty broken in the first few weeks of the season. So that's something positive to think about as well.
Yeah, when I see all of these trade speculations or generated trades, People really are living in NBA 2K because the thing they never ask themselves, and again, this goes back to the most net fans not watching the rest of the NBA, is what is the incentive for the team that has a player we want to trade away the guy that we need? There's no why the hell would the Detroit Pistons, who are overachieving this season under Bernie Bickerstaff, playing amazing basketball, why would they trade their sixth man, Isaiah Stewart, the guy on the bench who averages the most minutes? And they're really one of the few guys on the bench that embodies the dogged big man that everyone in the NBA is looking for, who is signed for the next 4 years at a very affordable $15 million. Why would they get rid of him when he is their only real depth behind Jalen Duren? Jalen Duren has had injury history since he came in the league already. Why would they give that up when they have someone who already has started last year for them, who's been with that team since he came into the league and knows their system? There's no incentive for them to trade Isaiah Stewart. But I see Isaiah Stewart trades all the time on my timeline. Why would the Charlotte Hornets trade Nick Richards, who's on a 2-year, $5 million deal, $5 million per year? That's a steal. Why would they trade a contract for a big who's skilled, getting better year over year, to the Knicks to help them win a championship? You have to be logical. You have to understand the other team's incentive. The Wizards are a real team that, to me, has incentive to shed the contract of Jonas Valanciunas because he's 32 years old and their median age for their core is 22. He's 10 years past their timeline. That makes sense. You got to look at guys like him or Vucevic, who also makes too much money for us to trade for, or DeAndre Ayton, who makes too much money for trade for, or Robert Williams. Tanking teams that have incentive to shed their veteran depth or their veteran contracts. Those are the teams you really should be looking at, not these teams like Charlotte or Detroit who are overachieving to possibly make the play in.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, I feel like sometimes Knicks fans live in a fairy tale of what we really have to offer. You know, they keep on talking about, well, Mitch is this, Mitch is that. Well, yes, Mitch is all those things when he's available. Teams are still going to look at that. Teams are still going to place value on whether or not he has been able to play consistently over and over and over again. Teams have to put that in the idea of the trade as well. So you talk about Stewart and people are like, oh yeah, but Mitchell can do everything that Stewart can and more. Well, maybe so, but Stewart's been available. He's got a very small contract and they do things pretty similar minus the shot blocking. Why would they trade someone that has been there creating chemistry over and over and over again with the players that are already there for a guy that might play 30 games season, at best. So it doesn't make sense, the scenarios that we put ourselves into, and we'll talk a little more about the trades there. But with what we have, yes, games that we've played, we should have beaten those teams, but seeing the fact that all the things that we were concerned about, like not clicking, all starting to click before the All-Star break, that is great news. That is great news. And it gives us the opportunity to really know what still needs to be done by that trade deadline. It shows where we are strong, where we are weak, what needs to still be fixed and tweaked. And I think that's very, very important, is that we're seeing that now. So, Lee, I'm going to let you talk real quick. Eddie C said that I'm cutting out a little bit. So I'm going to see if I can hardwire my connection so that doesn't happen. So I'll let you start talking about the game.
Bet. Here's a Precious Achiuwa monologue on why I love him. I advocated that he was going to be a more important piece for the Knicks defense improving, even over Mitchell Robinson. There's two reasons for that. One is his ability to switch off of ball screens to guard the perimeter. He at 6'8" and probably 220, 230. He's got a lot of mobility and quick footwork, and he can stay in front of his man on the perimeter. And you're already seeing the open perimeter shots being recovered better and closed out better because he's in that position, opposed to Karl Anthony Towns or OG Anunoby, who are having to guard two guys at once on the hedge. Or even those dead plays that Thibodeau loves to run on defense as well, to be able to guard both the perimeter and the post at the same time. Precious Achiuwa can do that. Mitchell Robinson can't. Mitchell Robinson's there more as a last line defense and a rim protector. But Achiuwa, to me, not just as a small ball five, but being able to pair him with Karl Anthony Towns at the 4 allows Towns to guard the weaker of the two post players, which keeps him out of foul trouble, which keeps him out of offensive fouls called on him, and allows Precious to not only abuse whoever it is that is not guarding Towns in the post, but also get his shot too. And we're starting to see his shot improve and his rebounding rate improve in the minutes provided. I think he's a more dynamic player than Jericho Sims, and he kind of makes Mitchell Robinson a little expendable now, because I think you're going to be able to retain Precious on a $10-12 million deal. I don't think it's going to be anything too extravagant. And then now you have that 14.5 expiring money for Mitchell Robinson that season that you can either aggregate or trade 1-for-1 and get some supporting pieces. Now, I don't know what that could be. Again, I don't see a huge incentive on trading Mitch, but perhaps as a salary cap business move, if it's anything, and you trade him for an expiring contract, and then you free that up in case you either need to re-sign somebody or you want to make some type of dip to get even further under that first apron. Because I know the CBA is definitely on the mind of his front office, and it has influenced their decision-making on what kind of trades we get and when we get certain players as well in their career. But the Utah Jazz game, to circle back to what happened last night, it was incredible to see us be able to smack the Jazz even without Jalen Brunson, not just our leading scorer, not second leading scorer, and our best point of attack, but also our floor leader in general, someone who's really gotten this offense initiated with his assist rates going to a career high, I believe around 8 now, to be able to win with Campaign as a starting guard, who himself racked up 9 dimes, but also Tyler Colwood to do double duty and not only drop an incredible double-double in the G League in a win, scoring the last 11 points in overtime, but then coming and helping us off the bench as our sixth man and our lead guard off the bench was incredible. It was a great team effort. There were moments where Mikal Bridges looked unstoppable and was going one-on-one, I think really solidifying him as a third option. And there were moments where Karl-Anthony Towns went ape shit and really dominated both Walker Kessler and Lauri Markkanen, especially when they played Markkanen at the 5. He really took advantage of that and was really, once he got below the level, he was just a bull in a china shop, getting what he wanted to post. So it was a great win. I think Tibbs really adjusted very well. Would like to see some more shots and higher for Landry Shamet. I really want him to get into rhythm because, as I've said on the KOT podcast, I think he can give us 80% of what Debo gave us off the bench.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, man. And hopefully this connection's a little bit better. If you guys see that I'm still kind of, stuttery or whatever, I'll move my internet around. But, the thing about last night's game that I really loved was seeing that we were without our captain, but then we were also without Miles McBride, who contributes a ton for us off the bench. And so being able to see, that we can still be flexible and still be effective and still work as a team and, just different people getting shine, seeing that Josh Hart to Precious Achiuwa lob, that was amazing. How many times did we say early in the season or last season, like, man, our guys are never looking for the lob. Why are we not looking for the lob? We need to look for, other ways of scoring besides the 3-pointer or isolation. And we're doing that. We're doing all those things now. Precious is getting lobs from Josh Hart. Josh Hart is proving to be one of the most dedicated, hardworking, basketball players in the whole freaking league. I don't know any team that would not die to have a Josh Hart on their squad. He is playing all-star type basketball these last few weeks. And so it's great to watch. And last night was beautiful to see that happen. And I say it all the time. A New York Knicks team that can get more than 30 assists in a game is not going to lose. A New York Knicks team that can get assists is going to be victorious. And what did we do? We got 31 assists last night. And that's without captain. That's without McBride. So that's everyone else kind of contributing and making that happen. And we're going to keep talking about the game. But first, I want to bring up our guy. His name is apparently Jay Elid. So Jay Elid, please come on up. Look at that. Jay Elid.
My man.
What's going on? The infamous Jay Ellis.
Not to be confused with Jay Ellis. This is his twin brother, Jay Elid.
Yeah, it's like me, Jay Ellis, then it's like Chris Paul and Cliff. We're all the same. Running the streets, fooling people, you know what I mean?
So Jay, we're just talking about the game, bro. Good to have you. What's one of your favorite takeaways from last night's game? So we were talking about what we were missing, but we were also talking about, Tibbs adjusting, talking about the 31 assists, different people kind of stepping up. What was your biggest takeaway from last night's game?
Man, it's definitely different people stepping up for me because there were so many times last season where if Jalen Brunson didn't play, all hell broke loose. The wheels fell off the wagon, and we were just searching for answers, which kind of caused them to kind of be overplayed and worn out during the playoffs. So, like, even against bottom feeding teams, like I remember the game, like when Brunson wasn't here and Randall was leading the team, and he's like, "All right, cool, we should be able to beat this team because we have Randall." And they're like, I think it was the Magic. I think it was the Magic we played. And he's like, okay, this is like a low level team. We have Randall. We still have enough. And we ended up losing. So now that Brunson isn't here, we have Cat, we have Mikal, we have OG. We have a system that works regardless if Brunson is here or not, where we can take care of a lot of teams. And to me, that was the most impressive. It's like, okay, we were still able to get through our sets, whether it be posting up Mikal Bridges, whether it be posting up Cat, whether it be OG hunting for mismatches. Like we can go through different things that work for us all season long without Brunson and find a way for it to work against other teams. So that was the thing that impressed me the most.
Yeah. So Jay, I'll throw this to you real quick because me and Lee been talking a little bit. So we were talking about how Tibbs is already, defying things that we didn't expect, like playing a 9-man rotation when guys are here ever since Shamet came back. Some people believe that we still need more. And then some of us are like, no, I think if we continue to click with what's going on here and continue to grow, I don't think we need to make anything drastic happen. So what are your thoughts on what you're seeing with this squad? Do you think that we still need to go for something big, something small, or completely stay put?
I think we should just completely stay put, to be honest with you. I just feel like we just need some time. Shamet just got back. Shamet, he's a guy who can hit threes at a good clip. And right now he's kind of fitting in seamlessly with our second unit, and he hasn't even hit his scoring bug yet. He's just fitting in playing defense. You know what I mean? So like once he gets acclimated and starts to hit those movement threes, that's going to help us a lot. Precious Achiuwa coming into this season, being his first full season with the Knicks, I almost feel like we traded for him again because it seemed like he was getting into a rhythm in preseason, got injured, and now he's back, and you starting to see what he worked on in the summer with the corner three, mixed with the defensive intensity that we were missing with Mitchell Robinson here. So I feel like he might get better with time just because he's still working himself into a flow, and you're starting to see the corner three start to fall for him. Yeah. And then Big Mitch is coming back too. That's going to help us match up with teams like the Atlanta Hawks or the Denver Nuggets or these other teams that have bigger bigs, and he's going to make us more versatile. So I feel like we have enough. We just need to let it cook and let everybody gain some chemistry so we can take it to the playoffs.
Yeah, and that's a great point. One thing I want to talk about is the individual play of some of the guys we're seeing right now. When you look at the numbers, and it's crazy because we have so many guys contributing that if you take your eyes away from the screen for a few minutes, you can miss historical basketball play from a different player than the one that's getting the shine from that game. Shout out to my guy Ariel. I haven't seen him in a long freaking time. So shout out to Ariel. What's up? Shout out to Prezi. Shout out to Fritz, the moderator of all moderators. Eddie C. Give a whole little rundown of the people that are in here because I forgot to do that. But one thing that I want to point out is Mikal Bridges' field goal percentage. Not just the fact that he's putting up numbers, but at the clip and the rate that he's putting up numbers is insane. The fact that he is having multiple games where he is 70% or higher in field goal percentage is incredible. And this is one thing that I said earlier in the season, and I'm so glad that it came to fruition, is yes, you are a great three-point shooter, but you are one of the best mid-range shooters in the game. Stop relying so much on the three-pointer and get the bucket where it's a for sure thing. And he is doing that. He is doing that effectively. He's doing that, very, very well, to the point that only 2 of his 12 field goals in that last game were actually three-point shots. Like the rest of his 15 or whatever that he scored were all in the mid-range. So it's good to see, things like that start to actually come to fruition before the All-Star break, because it's showing that not only are we gelling as a team more, but people are shaking off the weirdness that the season started off with. And the concerns and the silly, stupid tweets are starting to have to fall by the wayside because our players are showing them how stupid those tweets were. Like wanting to trade Mikal after the first 3 weeks of him being a Knick.
Yeah, that's nuts.
So what are your guys' like thoughts on that? Like, what player is kind of standing out to you most in these last few games?
I'll let you go, Lee.
Precious Achiuwa. I think he is becoming the linchpin for the bench. He's probably the best two-way guy on the bench in terms of like overall activity, in terms of what we need as well. I think Deuce McBride's been unbelievable, but he's been a little bit of a dip in his offensive uptick as well as his percentages. So Precious has been really active. I love some nights he'll give you 15, some nights he'll give you 15 boards. It's really whatever you need. He's willing to do the dirty work. And I love him. That's Karl-Anthony Towns. It gives us right now. He's shooting 41%. It might be half an attempt a game. I'm not sure of the volume, but he's actually shooting the best, his career best from the 3-point line, especially in those corners. And him doing that, it just unlocks it. It makes the spacing even better for Karl-Anthony Towns to go full beast mode and basically be on an MVP level campaign. Which, since he's returned, that aided in Cat winning the East Conference Player of the Month for the month of December. I think that there's a strong correlation. Why he was able to do that was because of Precious coming in and defending the opposing team's best post player to take that responsibility of Cat, which leads to fouls, offensive fouls, titty-tat fouls, and allows him just to be really the aggressive rebounder and just destroy people and ISO, destroy people in pick and roll, and destroy people on the perimeter. I've loved Precious Achiuwa. I'm a big fan of him. I hope he's re-signed on an affordable deal, perhaps something that's descending with a really expensive first year to give him what he deserves. And then allow that space to continue as the CBA changes year over year. But yeah, I'm a huge Precious fan. I love his energy. He's a ferocious dunker. I think we really need that player art type off the bench at 6'8". It's that big wing we've been looking for, and good for us. He can play with 3, 4, or 5.
Yeah, and that was a great point. You know, one thing I love about Precious is sometimes when a player adds something to their arsenal, something that you loved about them before suffers. You know, like they start doing something so well that they stop doing the other thing. It's like a substitution. Instead of adding to their bag, it was like an exchange. But with Precious, he still has that dominance in the paint when he gets in there. But his three-point shooting has gotten so much better from last year that you see it in the confidence, but also in the shot selection. Like, he is taking wise three-pointers. Like, a lot of guys that add three-pointers just get trigger happy and they shoot it without real discernment on if that's a good shot or not. But Precious is taking the right three-pointers, and that's what I love to watch, is he's making the right choice on if he should give the ball back up or if he should shoot the three, and he's doing it effectively. So I love that. What about you, Jay?
Yeah. I wanted Lee to go first because I'm also impressed with Mikal Bridges. So I knew Lee would break it up, knowing Lee. But I've been loving Mikal's demeanor more than anything, because like he came here kind of still trying to kind of figure out his role, really, because he came from being the man in Brooklyn to having to take a back seat. So like at first when he started, I felt like he was a bit too tentative, trying to get everybody else involved, where he's passing up shots that were supposed to be his at the end of shot clocks, and he looked unsure. And now he looks absolutely sure, shooting with over 50% from the field and over 40% from three since he busts out his slump. So I love that. I love that he has like a go-to move where when he has the ball in a certain spot, I'm kind of shocked that he misses sometimes. I'm like, oh, wait, he missed that? Like it's crazy when you expect it to go in every time. Like, it's kind of the way I felt like when I was watching Deuce last year shoot the three. Like, whenever he missed, I was kind of shocked. That's me when I'm watching Mikal Bridges shoot a fadeaway midi. So I think having him here kind of helped stabilize us even more when Brunson went down. And I think for me, it's Mikal Bridges' inside game and outside game and defense coming around.
I want to comment on that as well. I was one of the harsher people. I never got to the ridiculous level of trade him, or it ever said it was a bad trade or regretted the trade. But I was more concerned about his defense because he was brought in here to be what he was in Phoenix, which was the defending the point of attack, which he was excellent of, and it really allowed Chris Paul to be hidden elsewhere. Chris Paul would guard usually the fifth worst player on that Phoenix team, and that's the same situation we need with Brunson. Sometimes we have to hide him, especially against OKC. Come in on Friday. Hopefully, we can put him on Dort or Caruso and just guard the corners. But Mikal Bridges has absolutely unloaded the clip at all three levels. And the most beautiful thing about him is he's really solidified. He's a third option. He scores at a much higher rate, a much more difficult rate than OG or Josh Hart. And it allows OG to feel the pressure of having to go out there and get 20 every now and then. He can go 3 games in a row and only give you 5 points, but he's going to give you the best defense of anyone in the NBA. I believe he's number 2 with a field goal percentage he holds his opponent to on the minutes that he's on the floor, which is an unbelievable stat. And I think that helps him. That's his expertise. Allow him to lean into that and let Mikal Bridges absolutely cook in the mid-range. And now he's attacking closeouts with a lot more confidence and overall just his aggressiveness, the willingness and won't to get his points. I think he's finally getting comfortable in Tibbs' system. He knows when it's his turn and his turn to eat, and he knows when he needs to defer when someone else is hot too. So it's unbelievable. The two-man game between him and OG or him and Hart or him and Cat is equally as dangerous as what Cat and Brunson are producing in the pick and roll. And I think that will only get more unleashed when he starts leading the bench unit.
Yeah. And, you know what's crazy is like Josh Hart said it from the get-go. You know, when everyone was down on Mikal early, he was like, this is on us. Like, we haven't really made it to where he can feel like he can be him in this system. It's on us to help him get that comfortability and feel like he can play his game within what we already have going. And it's happened. Like, he is playing with an elite confidence. Like, he gets the ball and he goes, I'm going to score. Like, this is the perfect time for me to score. And no hesitation. Like, the perfect fadeaways, the perfect fake to fade away to then driving in. Like, he's just got it all when it comes to that offensive package. And so before I go with my player of these last few games, I do want to give a shout out to everyone in the chat. There was a post here by Prezi that was saying, yo, let's try to get this to 9K. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Screw that. All right, I want us to get to 10K by the All-Star break. All right, before free agency and all that, we need to get this channel to 10K. So if you guys can, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, retweet it. It doesn't hurt. Honestly, you copy the link, you paste it in Twitter, boom. Whoever follows you sees it. Share good content, whether it's this show, whether it's the post games, any help is like appreciated. We are thankful for it. We all have lives outside of this, but we love this. Like, we love being able to connect with you all. We love being able to have conversations with each other about this team. We love this team, and that's why we're here. So any love, any support would be a total blessing. Knicks Nightcap too. Yes, thank you so much, Ariel. I appreciate you, bro. We do need a watch party, and we're gonna figure that out. Knicks Nightcap's talking to a bar in New York City, and we will let you guys know when that will be. But my player for these games, I don't think we go 9-0 like these last games without Josh Hart. There are so many of those games that we do not win without the extra rebound by Josh Hart, without the extra pass, without the dive for the ball, without the assist. And the thing about Josh Hart is it's funny because you go back and you look at people's tweets about how we're the stupidest team in the world. We gave up Cam Reddish and a pick, technically 2 first-round picks. Who would do that for a Josh Hart? Like, for a mediocre role player at best. Well, this mediocre role player that since day one I wanted on the squad has shut every single mouth possible that had a negative thing to say about him. Like, this guy is unlike any other player in the league because there's not a single thing he does not do. Like, you can go down the list, even of the people that are leading in the All-Star, even the people that are all whatever. There's something that you can go, yeah, they don't do this though. Like, We said it all the time about Randall. All NBA, but he doesn't play a lick of defense. Like you could always find something in these players that they're not willing to do. There is not a single thing that Josh Hart does not try to improve and get better game in and game out, to the point that there's some assists that you're just like, holy crap, that was Stockton-like. The fact that Josh Hart is the one that found that person cutting to the basket is insane. The fact that Josh Hart is the one that made that lob, but he's also getting, 15 rebounds in that same game. There is nothing that Josh Hart does not try to give 100% at. And that is something that can be the foundation to winning a championship or not winning a championship. Like, you bank on those players, because those are the players that are going to make everybody better. Because when someone's having a rough game in this area, he's going to do everything he can to step up and cover that wound, And so I got to give props to Josh Hart. I think he's one of the most hardworking players I've ever seen play in the NBA.
Yeah. You know what? Like, every team that's a championship caliber team needs this signature hustle guy to kind of do a lot of the dirty work. And Josh Hart does that. And I love him for it. And to be honest with you, is like, you're right. We wouldn't be anywhere without Josh Hart. But you know what? I give him a lot of credit, because the one thing coming into the season that we were saying was, man, we have all these 3-point shooters. Josh Hart needs to hit threes too. Otherwise, it can kind of mess up the spacing. Maybe that could be the weak link. And then the season starts and you're looking at Josh Hart and he's like, oh, you can't leave him open. You can't leave him open either. There was a time when Josh Hart was shooting a better percentage than Mikal Bridges, and he's been steady ever since. So now you're absolutely right. Like, there is no real weakness in Josh Hart's game right now. He's pretty much the perfect role player.
Yeah. But that's the thing, is I feel like it's so disrespectful now, with as much growth as we've seen from him, to even call him a role player or like a hustle player. Because if you Google, just for the heck of it, I Googled like hustle players, and they're players that do one or two things really good for their team. So top of the list was Dennis Rodman. You were never relying on Dennis Rodman to score. Like, there were some games that he had like 40 rebounds and 0 points. Like, he was there for the rebound. He was there for saving the ball from going out of bounds. That's what Rodman was pretty much there for. That was his hustle stat. And then they have like Marcus Smart. You don't think of him as like someone that's going to give you a triple-double. You think of him as someone that's going to give you really good defense and maybe a few good shots, throughout the game. Then you look at Patrick Beverley, same thing. Montrezl Harrell. Okay. Then you go Kyle Lowry. Okay. Kyle Lowry is going to be someone that, does a lot on the offensive end, but not as much hustle on the defensive end as what you see from Josh Hart. So for me, it's kind of like, I put him in leaps and bounds above any other hustle player on the list, because he's doing everything from defense to facilitating to 3-pointers to driving to pick and rolls to, diving for the ball. Like, there's nothing he won't do. So I feel like that's kind of a simplification of what he really is.
Well,
Yeah,
for me, go ahead.
And
for me,
I tweeted on Twitter that he's the best role player in the NBA, and I stand by that take. I think he is the number one best. And on this team, I call him a role player because he's a starter, and he's probably the 5th best starter overall, which is very close, in my opinion, between him and OG. But if he's a 5th best starter, and it's hard to have 5 stars, you have to be a role player at that point. And you're right. He does everything at an all-star level except score. He scores on a role player level, but damn it, he scores when we need it. He hits clutch threes. He's a clutch free throw shooter. And his mid-range fadeaway shot is one of our bailout shots that we use in crunch time too. And it gets us a bucket when we absolutely need it. He might also be our best passer. I think he might be the overall best passer on the team, not including Tyler Kolek, who I'm a huge fan of. But I think of the starters in the rotation, I would say he's a better passer than just about anybody, including Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns.
And it's weird because we say that he's our 5th best scorer and stuff like that. Well, of course, you got a guy like Karl-Anthony Towns, who is playing some of the best offensive basketball in the league, and yet you still get games where Josh Hart is scoring 17 to 24 points, you know? So that's crazy that we consider that like our fifth best, you know, like scorer in the starting lineup. But that's because he's playing with guys that score a lot. You got Mikal Bridges, who's like the mid-range assassin. You got Jalen Brunson that's gonna get buckets, you know. So when you have 3 or 4 guys that are scoring at least 25 per game, of course you're gonna be the, you know, the lowest on the 5. But you put him on another team, and his numbers look a lot different, like on the offensive end as well. You know, you put him on some other teams where he's scoring 17 to 24 a night, and he's the 3rd best scorer, you know. So I just think offensively, it's because we are so good offensively right now that someone's got to be the bottom.
Yeah.
I define star as somebody you can run an offense through. So, and Josh Hart does very well making plays in fast break and secondary options type of deal. But if you're going to have a defense key in on him and tell him to make a play for like 40 minutes a game, I don't think he's that level offensive player. And I think he would tell you the same thing. He imagine the fact he'll say something like, "That's not my job, brother." He'll say something like that, which is what he said when people were asking him to score 30. So shout out to my sister Ebony, who says this. He stars in his role. I think that's, he's a star in his role. Like he does everything he has to do in his role to perfection, and he never really oversteps his bounds. And I think that's why I consider him like the ultimate role player, but not quite a star, but very damn good for sure. Like he's phenomenal for this team.
Yeah. So with everything that's going on, you know, that we've been praising, there have been some games that are a lot closer than they should be against some of these bottom tier teams. So what do you think is something that we're still missing to make sure that, you know, this high that we're on continues, and that we continue to be able to, as we go up against these better teams coming up, like our next game is going to be a big challenge. What do you think needs to be different than the last few weeks that we've seen? Like, why are some of those games that, you know, shouldn't have been so close? Why are they so close? What needs to be changed in your guys' opinion? I'll go to you first, Jay.
First quarter execution, I kind of feel like sometimes we kind of ease ourselves into the game. Sometimes it's kind of might just be the competition, you know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, it's the Magic, it's the whoever we are. We don't have to go all the way out, because then you'll see from the first quarter to the 3rd and 4th, the intensity level just picks up tenfold. So I think we just have to be a little bit more locked in through the first quarter. But I think and I feel like we have what it takes, and hopefully we'll see that once we play these other teams, they'll take some other teams more seriously. But it's like it's one of those things where it's concerning, but we still won 9 in a row, so you don't want to beat it over the head, but you still kind of look at it like, you know what, if we're trying to take ourselves seriously and be a championship team, we should clean this stuff up.
I'm not scared at all. I think, again, it's important to watch the rest of the NBA. And if you watch the rest of the NBA, you see very good teams beat very bad teams by single digits all the time. I don't think it's any cause of concern with the Thunder's win streak. When it started, they only beat the Magic by 6 points, and that's what started this 13-game win streak. The next night, they only beat the Miami Heat by 7 points. These single-digit things happen. Then they beat the Pacers only by 6 points. So, and the Charlotte Hornets, they only beat by 12. I don't think there's anything to be worried about with how many points we win by. It's just that we win. And a lot of the times in previous seasons under Tom Thibodeau, sometimes it was the trap games that got us, that would either put us into a illusion streak or cause someone to get inconsistent with their shot, specifically RJ Barrett. But this era under Tibbs and this unbelievable starting 5 where any night someone can go off for 25, I think that keeps us above the fray and allows us not to choke games away in the 4th quarter, because we're no longer relying on a highly efficient, high-volume Jalen Brunson. Now that it can be spread out, sometimes it's Josh Hart that leads us home to the win, or Mikal Bridges who kills them from the mid-range, or OG who hits a couple corner threes, or Karl-Anthony Towns who scores 12 straight points. That level of being spread out the offense from the starting five, to me, that's going to keep us winning games until we face the really tough ones. And this OKC stretch, a 9-game win streak versus a 13-game win streak, to me, this is the best test of the season and maybe the best pure number one NBA game of the entire season so far.
Yeah, it's a good point. At the end of the day, a win's a win. And I don't care what we win or lose by. My whole thing is some of those games that it ended up being a smaller win was because we allow teams to get back into a game. Or like Jay said, we started really, really slow. And so I think this next game will be kind of a test, like to what we can really do. OKC is OKC. They're playing at an incredible level. They're even without Chet, like they are looking like a scary basketball team. It looks like Shea can score whenever he decides that he wants to, against anybody. So it's going to be a test for our defense. But I definitely want to see more so, not that we blow teams out, but that when we have really, really good leads, that we don't take our foot off the gas. Like, it seems like sometimes we enter into a third quarter after we've had the lead, or a fourth quarter, and it's like we look gassed, but look at the minute wise, the only one who really should be full on gassed is probably Mikal Bridges minute wise, so that can't really be an excuse. Like, a lot of people will blame Tibbs, but if you look at the minutes, Mikal's the only one really like slaving when it comes to the minutes lately. But I want to see us actually like hold on to, those leads, so it's not such a up to the last minute situation. And in the next upcoming weeks, we got OKC twice. We got the Bucks, who have been clicking, the Pistons that have been playing a lot better than anybody expected them to. So I think these next few weeks are really going to help us out, to kind of see what needs to be done. So I'm thankful for how our schedule has kind of been, because it's allowed us to start clicking on all cylinders. But now it will show us before the deadline, okay, what needs to be fixed for us to get into playoff ready mode, contention for a championship mode, and all that stuff. Don't know what happened to Lee, but we'll, continue until he gets back. But Jay, the next thing I want to talk to you about, okay? So we saw that game. We saw everything that went down. Cool. It's fine. Now that we have a 9-man rotation and things are clicking and everyone's starting to figure out their role, there is a lot of talks about Mitchell Robinson, possibly coming back this month. Ian Begley had posted something that, he's still not fully like in practice yet, but Tibbs believes that he could start practicing possibly this month. And if so, that if he looks good in practice, that Tibbs will start getting him into the game. So, which is kind of crazy to think that he can go from not even practicing here on January 2nd, and yet finding him in practice and in a game before the end of the month. That's crazy. But also with excitement, there's also concern. There's also concern of how does it fit? Where does he play? Like, does everything flow? What do you think you expect to see happen with Mitchell Robinson? Because first, this is all hopeful and all expectation, that they believe that he could practice and possibly get some game time before the end of the month. But it's also cutting it pretty freaking close to, like trade deadline and everything like that, to not know how this all is going to work out. Like, and if it's all going to work out. So what are your hopes and your thoughts with the rumors of Mitchell Robinson possibly coming back?
Well, first, I hope he comes back and does great. But for me, I know how these things go. I've seen a lot of come back from injury stuff before. So I'm going to just look in the past to inform me what's going to happen in the future. So I already know what's going to happen. He's going to come back. He's going to be a little bit rusty. Fans are going to get on him. What are you doing? He's a bum. We're going to go through that whole cycle. If he's still here, I think he'll still be here just because he's coming back so close to the deadline.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it's even worth the Knicks shopping him, and I feel like teams would be hesitant to give up pieces for him unless we attach like a pick or something, which the Knicks aren't in a position to do. So I feel like he'll be here, and we'll be testing him out in February and March to get him more into rhythm. And then I feel like February, March, he'll get into rhythm, and Tibbs will experiment with some lineups. He'll probably play around 15 minutes a game or so. And then Knicks fans who were pissed that he was messing up the chemistry at first are going to be like, oh, wow, we do need him. And and the pick and roll defense is going to pick up. We're going to see him and Cat in certain minutes. Our defensive rating is going to pick up. Our offensive rebounding is going to pick up. And then we're like, wow, we have so many weapons. But I feel like that's going to happen in like March. But we're going to go through some growing pains with fans throwing tomatoes at first.
Yeah. All right. What are your thoughts, Lee?
Never trade Mitch. I'm on that train. I think he's a exceptional human being. I love that he's our longest tenured player. I like him as a person and a player. He is also extremely injury prone. He's probably top 5 most injury prone players in the NBA, and that's saying a lot in this era. He also gives you absolutely nothing on offense. I think his teammates don't even trust him as a lob threat because of his hands or his awareness or his timing. It's just been that way his entire time here with the Knicks.
Yeah.
We're seeing Hot Porty get more lob attempts than we are Mitchell Robinson, and that's for a reason. Hold on, Jay. I'm about to land the plane. I never think that we should trade him because he gives us that dog that can come in and guard some of the NBA's elite bigs one-on-one. And without him, we don't have that player. Now, Karl-Anthony Towns played Joker great last year. He played Durant great in the series before, but you don't want him to have to exert that energy when he's also our second option on offense. I rather Money Mitch come in and give you some unbelievable defense on Embiid or whoever else it is, and then we win the series that way. So don't trade Mitch. There's no reason to. There's no one out there that gives us that's realistic, that gives us a percentage of what he brings to us. I don't want to hear any Jonas Valanciunas crap. Now that we got Cat, we don't need him anymore. So yeah, forget all those. Keep Mitch as that break glass if needed, and you throw him on a defensive bid, on an elite offensive bid, and you win the series.
Yeah.
Can I just defend Mitch one quick second? I'm just defending Mitch one quick second because I know the shout out to Eru and my guys from Knicks Nightcap. The Mitch haters aren't here today, so to balance things out. Shout out to you guys. But I just want to say there was a one point in the league, and it was one time when Mitch was here, he was leading the league in field goal percentage off of lobs. I just want to remind everybody of that. And he set like a record that happened. So like I know it has been a while since that happened. Love Jalen Brunson, but when one of the Brunson's weaknesses was throwing the lob to the big, like that wasn't happening. Now I feel like there's gonna be more opportunities for Mitch to get those lobs and kind of get those old school looks again. So I'm kind of curious to see how that's gonna look. So I don't put everything on Mitch because I still remember there was one time where he was pretty much catching lobs left and right when he first got.
Who do you think was throwing those? Was that Derrick Rose?
Was that the Jerry Jack era? When was that? Was that Derrick?
I feel like during Jerry Jack, he wasn't playing a whole lot. Definitely wasn't starting. I feel like it had to be Derrick Rose that was throwing him those lobs because it wasn't Brunson, and it sure wasn't Alec Burks.
Right. No. And we always used to talk about RJ Barrett throwing him a bunch of lobs.
Yeah. Bob used to. Yeah. Yep. So here's the one thing I'll say about that as well, though, is when Mitch put on size that made him a stronger threat in the paint, he also lost a lot of agility that he had more so when he was smaller, in my opinion. Like, I feel like when he put on that weight and bulked up, like his hands stopped working. So that was great that happened at that time, but it's been a long time since we've seen Mitch be able to do those kind of things. So I don't want to look at the past and be like, oh, he at one time he did this, because it's been a while since we saw that, which is why we can say the words at one time he did this, because it's not something that's really there anymore. I personally, I like Mitch. Okay. However, I'm concerned about, like what will happen, like even when, he had chemistry and longevity with players in the past, there were still times that it got pretty clunky. And now we're starting to click on multiple cylinders with all of our guys, and to bring somebody in that, like is battling injury and is now not just going to have to work on building that chemistry, but also finding his own footing at the same time. It does bring some concerns. But like Lee said, putting him in a few minutes a game to be that strength, that's what this needs to be. Like, it needs to be him coming in alongside of like Precious Achiuwa, put in some good minutes to, lock down that second unit. But when it comes to trades, we said this in the start of the show, me and Lee, you can't expect something of value that's going to make your team that much better for the second half of the season and expect to just trade a player that hasn't played up until this point in the season. Like, it's not going to happen. No one's going 1-for-1 for a player that hasn't seen minutes. No matter how good he's been at times, the value's not there. So we lock in, we do what we have to do. We get him healthy and get the best moments out of him that we can get out of him. But that does leave the question of, okay, then who is expendable? Is there anybody expendable to just have extra insurance? The last thing you want is to bank on Mitch coming back and then Mitch get injured, God forbid, or anything like that in the second half of the season. So does that make Sims expendable? There's apparently rumors that, teams were interested in Sims before. Does that make him expendable because Mitchell Robinson's coming back? What are your guys' thoughts on that? Is that something that we even, that player may not see minutes at all, but is it something that we go down, or do we think that Jericho showed enough in the beginning half of the season that if we do need him down in the playoffs, that he can, perform? What are your thoughts, Lee? I know you were back and forth with Sims throughout the season.
Yeah, I was really I was leading the charge of Sims hate and get the bum off my team for the month of November, and then something clicked with him. And when he started playing at the center position, I really the eye test matched the stats, and the stats said he was a top 5 rim protector in the entire NBA. And his rebounding rate improved this year as well at a career high. So I got no issue with Sims. I don't think we should really make any trades, in my opinion. I think where we need to be in the salary cap. I think we had depth on this roster, and as JL has pointed out, the more reps that Landry Shamet gets, the better, because I really believe he can be one of our volume shooters off the bench. Don't trade in the rookies, because I think all of them are going to be important to eventually supplant other guys in the rotation as Campaign and Shamet either age out or get better opportunities elsewhere. We got everything we need, man. This starting 5 is so good. You really just need guys that know their role and have spots on the floor where they're a very high percentage when they take a shot. And we got that. I don't think there's any moves that need to be made. We even got reserves on reserves with guys like TJ Warren and Matt Ryan on two-way contracts or playing in the G League. I think there is absolutely no reason for us to make any moves.
Yeah. I don't think if the only thing I can think of, like, I always go back to Precious, not because he's not playing well, but because of his contract. That like we purposely didn't give him a no trade clause to trade him, but the reason he came back after injury, so it's taking him a while to get acclimated. So I can see the Knicks trying to keep him too, but like on the other side, it's like you kind of run the risk of having Precious be Hartenstein next season, where it's like he gets better during the season. He doesn't have a no trade clause. He can sign wherever he wants, and he gets the bag, and then we lose him for nothing. Like, that's the only thing I could kind of see. But he's also been very loyal to the Knicks, so I'm not sure what's going to happen there.
Yeah,
Precious.
If we trade Precious, I throw a fit. Like, I freak the heck out. Like, to me, that would be one of the stupidest moves. Like, this guy has shown that he wants to be a Knick. Like, how many times did we desire for players who wanted to be in New York, like that wanted to be here? Like, a lot of us get mad and like, yo, I can't believe Hart took the bag after, he did what he did here in New York. Well, Precious did whatever he could to come back. Like, he wants to be here. Him and OG, they thrive off of each other. Precious continues to get better and better as well. So for me, I think that would be a total spit in the face to trade him. Like, I don't think that there's any reason to trade him. And when I look at the value that he brings to the team, I don't know any player that would be available in a trade that would be worth getting rid of Precious. Like, not a single player. Like, we can go down the list. I don't think there's a single player that would bring as much value as Precious if we let Precious go. That's my personal opinion.
I agree. That doesn't make sense to move Precious at all to me. This just doesn't make sense.
So before we go to the next topic, Prezi asked me what was in my cup. That's my, fellow bourbon drinker out there. So shout out to my guy, Prezi. Prezi, I'm drinking this right here. This is a Hirsch pick from a store called Liquor at the Lake in South Carolina. And it is absolutely delicious. I cracked it tonight. The reason I bought it is because Hirsch, gets barrels from different places, and depending on the mash bill, what it is. So this one being 72% corn, 13% rye, and 15% malted barley. It is a Willet barrel. And so I'm a huge fan of Willet whiskey. And so for me, this pick is absolutely delicious. So shout out to Liquor at the Lake. Shout out to my guy, Anthony, for picking it up for me. But this is absolutely delicious. So cheers to the New York Knicks. Cheers to what I believe is going to be forget Eastern Conference Finals. We going to the finals. So cheers to my, bourbon drinkers, to my liquid death drinkers, to my late night coffee sippers, whatever you are. Shout out to you guys. Shout out to Nostalgic Nick. Appreciate you coming through. But yeah, I want Precious Achiuwa for the long haul. But let's talk about the next thing. Karl Anthony freaking Towns, Player of the Month. Well deserved. I'm seeing so many people that didn't want Cat.
Uh-oh. Sound went out?
Yeah, sound cut out.
Okay.
I'm seeing so many people that didn't want Cat here now on that, Cat bandwagon, post every single day about how great Cat is. You got guys like Ari from Manhattan, went from negative Knicks Twitter to holy crap, we got Karl Anthony Towns. I'm the happiest guy in Manhattan. So shout out to Ari. But he's earned it. Like, he has been ridiculous. It's seriously just a whole new level. Like, it's straight up. I never watched Dragon Ball Z, but I always saw those like Super Saiyan things where like all of a sudden they went Super Saiyan and they were like a glowing version of themselves. I feel like that is Cat when he put on a Knicks jersey. So what are your thoughts, Lee, on Cat up until this point? And do you think it's sustainable for the season?
It's 1 hour after the trade was announced, I tweeted Dynasty because I saw what Cat did with Tibbs at the 5 and the numbers that he put up. It's when he earned his All-NBA nod, and I thought he was going to be dynamite with Jalen Brunson and the big wings that we had at the time surrounding him. I thought it was going to be an unbelievable, seamless fit, and sure enough, that's what we got. What I also expected was some of the – I mentioned this too when we first got in the foul trouble, the offensive fouls, the turnovers, sometimes the decision-making, but he's really cleaned up a lot of the decision-making, especially in the short roll. He knows where his guys are. He hits his target, and now he's even advanced to the point where he's throwing some really fancy trick passes as well to find cutters and to find shooters on the perimeter. So I do think this is sustainable. I think this is what Cat is going to be as long as the starting 5 is healthy and it continues to move the ball the way that it's been moving, which is why we're getting 28, 30 assists pretty much on the regular. It's a brand new team. It's the best team that Tibbs has ever coached, and it's the best passing team that Tibbs has ever coached too. So I think it's contagious and it leads to winning. So why would you avert what is working for you? Towns has all the space in the world to operate from, and he's starting to really understand how dominant he can be in the post, not just on mismatches, but any 5 that tries to guard him.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. It's going to be sustainable. Like Lee said, just the fact that he's at the 5, I think it's helping a lot. It's opened up his game more. And plus just the personnel that the Knicks have built around him. I know Lee kind of mentioned this on KOT show. I think it's highlighted his strengths. So you got to give a lot of credit to Leon Rose because we have a guy we have all guys here who can all play defense pretty much, shoot threes, and all those guys can also move off the ball and cut like nobody's business. So when you have that type of versatility around a guy who loves to pass, who can also shoot, stretch the floor, and can also just be unselfish, it just highlights all the best parts of Cat, and he's looking even more awesome than he was just because of that. And then you add to that he's rebounding the ball again. He seems to find like a new swagger now that he's put on the Knicks jersey. So you put all that into that cup, and it's like, oh man, this guy is killing it. And like one of the things I liked about last game too was like he casually had 30 and 20. Like he wasn't demanding the ball in the post. There wasn't like a bunch of plays just ran for him. Everybody ate. The team had 30 assists. And then you look up and he's like, wait, he had 30 points and 20 rebounds. So it just happens so seamlessly sometimes that even watching him, sometimes you don't appreciate it because it happens so seamlessly. And I think that's the best part of what he's doing right now, that he's dominating seamlessly within a team concept. And a lot of superstars don't do that.
Yeah. And you know what's crazy? And this isn't like a throw shade at Randall, like that's not this, that's not what I'm doing. But when Randall was getting 30+ point games, a lot of times it felt like Randall was going and attempting to get 30+ point games.
Yeah.
Like you could see the effort in trying to get those buckets, like he had a 30-point game, but like he shot, as much as he did, and he kept, the ball in his hand constantly. Like you said with Cat, it's seriously insane. You'll be, watching the game and the broadcast will go, another quiet 30-point night for Karl Anthony Towns. And you're like, wait, what? Like, I knew that he had 10 assists. I knew that he had 20 boards. I knew that, like he did this or did that. I had no clue that he had 30+ points. And that's because the game's just coming to him and he's making the wise decisions and the right shots. And it's beautiful to watch because it's not forced in any way, shape, or form. And so I love watching him be able to play the way that he's playing. And what it reminds me of is, so as Eminem started like gradually increasing in popularity in his career, there was the demographic of hip hop heads that were like, yeah, he's talented, but he'll never be one of the greats. Like it's just a whole bunch of URL people that are supporting him, this, that, and whatever. Then he got on the right beat and the right song when he did Renegade with Jay-Z. And all of a sudden, you see him outshine who people were calling one of the greatest of all time in Jay-Z at that point in his career. And they're like, oh my goodness, this white boy just destroyed Jay-Z on his own beat on the best song on the album. And it was just like, this now is Karl Anthony Towns' Renegade. Like, he's always been an incredible player, but now he fits. He feels like he's home. And you can see it in the way that he walks, the way that he talks, the way that he celebrates. It's a new version of himself. And I love it. Like, there is a pride in how he is playing. And it's not pride in self, but pride in the team that he's representing and the people that he's playing with. And it's beautiful to watch. So I got to give my, kudos to Karl Anthony Towns and everything that he's been doing.
Yeah, I love how he just bangs it on people and starts screaming, pulling his jersey, got the New York on the chest and barking, cursing at the. Yeah, I love all of that. I love all that. Just like I like Mikal Bridges when he's doing the bobblehead gun finger stuff. Yeah, I like all that bravado stuff. That's some New York stuff.
Yeah,
I'm loving it.
I love it. I love it. Cool. So that's Cat. We talked about Mitch. Here's one thing I'm gonna say, and Lee, you can feel the pain with me. Pouring out some water and some whiskey for the fact that Dorian Finney-Smith is now on the other side of the map, and he's no chance of being a New York Knick like we had hoped. But one thing I thought was hilarious when they interviewed him about going over there, he said, "I'm actually really happy, and you understand if you never played in New York, but I'm happy to no longer be the little brother in that city and actually being able to be on a team with the big dogs." And so he gave his pretty much kudos to New York being the real team, the Knicks being the real team of New York, and feeling like a stepchild little brother as a Brooklyn Net player. So shout out to Dorian Finney-Smith for knowing the truth.
That was funny. Yeah, that was the highlight of the whole trade. was the quote.
Yes, it was.
Minnesota is down 6 going into the fourth quarter. So everyone, send your prayers up. Let's hope that this is Dante DiVincenzo and Randall's best contribution to the New York Knicks this season. And Randall, do what you got to do. Dante, do it for us. Maybe you'll be back in a Knicks jersey one day, and this will be something we can look back on.
Please.
So what are your guys' thoughts? Going into February, do you think that we can get closer to that number one spot? Do you think that the Cavs are ever going to fizzle down for us to catch up, or do you think that right now we just need to be fighting for number 2?
I think we can definitely take that number one spot. There's no.
Uh-oh. I don't know what happened. All right, I'll let you go, Jay.
I feel like it's all gonna have to be about health, but we can definitely take the number one spot for sure. I'm not really afraid of the Cavs. I think people have to kind of realize that the Cavs have kind of been the Boston Celtics and the Cavs. They kind of been together longer. We've had a lot to figure out in the beginning, so people expect people to just gel and basketball teams to gel, and things take time. And I think we're taking the time to gel now, and we're coming together. So I do believe that we are better than the Cavs, even though we lost to the Cavs. I do believe that we have a chance to be a number 2 or number 1 seed. But to me, that's not the goal. The goal for me is to win the championship. Like, even if the Cavs finish with a better record than the Knicks, like, it to me doesn't really mean that much. What means more is when we meet in the playoffs, do we smack them down? So, and I believe the answer would be yes, personally.
Yeah. And like, for me, it's the same thing. As much as I would like to say, we were number 1 in the Eastern Conference, at the end of the day, what does it matter? Like, what are we going to do in the playoffs? That's what I want to see. Can we really, lock it down when it matters? And that's right. To me, that's going to be the test of time. And I believe that we can. Like, I think that there are teams that going up against us in a game can be better than us. Like, just honestly, straight up, one game, they can be the better team. But a team that's got to beat us night in and night out over and over again, I don't think that there's anybody in the East that I believe can do that. Like, I really don't.
I'm going to be honest with you. You might not like all this, but I do feel like we can beat any team in the East, but I still do feel like we have certain things to work on. Lee has heard me say this plenty of times. The Knicks struggle with long-winged guys who switch, which is why the Hawks give us so much trouble, which is why I feel like we need Mitch for the Hawks to help against that and just help against Clint Capella. I think we need Mitch for the Cavs too, because of the way their 2 bigs are set up, and he was able to dominate them. Yeah. But there's certain teams that kind of give us trouble, and I still feel like even though we've gotten better at kind of solving that problem, I still feel like that's the next step for us to be like, yeah, we can beat anybody. And until I see that, I can more confidently say, yeah, we can destroy every team in the league.
Yeah.
That's
You know
me
what's
personally.
crazy is out of all the teams in the East, I think the Hawks would be the team that I would not want the most in the start of the playoffs, because they tend to, against New York, raise their level of play. And for some reason, over and over again, we lower our level of play when we go up against them. And they're playing with a new kind of confidence, the days. And players are really starting to come into themselves. So I personally would like to avoid the Hawks in the beginning of the playoffs myself. What are your thoughts about the playoffs,
Me?
Mr. Beto?
I think we're going to dominate. I think we're going to win the championship this season. I do agree with you, though, that the Atlanta Hawks would be my preference to avoid at all costs. Trae Young tends to play not his best basketball, but his most efficient, which might be his best basketball against us. He's a terribly inefficient player, but against us, he tends to shoot over 40% from three. And the other guys, Jalen Johnson, who I think will win most improved, my early season prediction for most improved player, I think he will. He's a rebounding machine. You got Dyson Daniels, who can really play strong on-ball defense against Brunson, and Capella always kills us in pick and roll as a roller. He also sets amazing screens and gets all those perimeter guys open for wide-open threes too, DeAndre Hunter and Bogdanovich. They're a tough cover, and they've become a better offensive team since the head coach from Utah took over as well. But anyone else, Boston, OKC, Dallas are probably the Nets' three best teams after us, and I think all will give us different problems in different ways. But I do think we have a coaching and a superstar to beat any of them in a 7-game series.
Yeah, I agree. Shout out to Dante DiVincenzo. I just saw he just dove on the ball and is causing some fits for the Celtics, who are only up 4 right now. So, keep a watch on that. I'm hoping we're in the number 2 seed by the end of the night.
That'd be nice. Let's go, Dante.
That'd be very nice.
Let's
All
go,
right,
Randall.
so we talked about trades. We talked about staying put. 2 more things to talk about. There seems to be a lot of crazy back and forth all over Twitter on all-star voting numbers. I feel like we're going to go through this every single year, people complaining that Brunson doesn't have this many votes, that many votes. Yes, we have to keep voting. That's for sure. As fans, we have to keep voting. But we've said it a million times. NBA All-Star, the way that it's curated, isn't about the best basketball player. It's about a popularity contest. Mm-hmm. And who is the Instagram / Twitter / TikTok kind of NBA player? LaMelo Ball. So regardless of the fact that his team sucks, he's going to get those votes. Why? Because he's got a whole bunch of people who don't really fully follow a team, and they just follow the NBA and watch cool things and they watch highlights. They're going to vote for him. Why? Because he's a highlight player. They don't care that his team sucks. They don't care that he doesn't affect winning. They're not diehard fans of the Charlotte Hornets that are voting for him. There's not even that many people that go to a Charlotte Hornet game all throughout the year that he has those kind of votes for. But we don't live in the age of our NBA fandom where we fell in love with a team and we support and rock with a team. That's not the current NBA fan. The current NBA fan is highlights, is, watching the game because they want to be a cool, great basketball player, not because they want to follow a team. So we got to realize that this isn't the same kind of NBA that we grew up on. So a lot of these players that are going to get the votes are going to get votes because of who they are. And everyone's like, well, what about Cat? Cat's got all. Well, yes, but you see how much Minnesota loves Karl Anthony Towns still to this day. He's got all of their votes. He's got all those people's votes. And he's got the young guys that also are voting for LaMelo Ball. So Jalen Brunson, as great as he is going to struggle because he's not that flashy media personality. He's not. People are like, oh, but he's got a podcast. He's got that. Yeah, but who's watching the podcast?
Knicks fans.
Mostly Knicks fans. And non-Knicks fans don't vote for the Knicks. Like, so many people hate the New York Knicks for no other reason than the fact that they're the New York Knicks. So,
yeah, and LaMelo has 10 million followers on Instagram.
exactly.
Like his father has laid the groundwork for the ball name for years before he even got into the league, and it's kind of helped his popularity. Like Phil said, so it's a popularity contest, not necessarily a basketball contest when it comes to fan voting. And LaMelo is just more popular, and also too, like last year there was like a campaign where people were complaining about Jalen Brunson being a foul merchant and stuff like that. I also wonder if like that has a lot to do with like the hate that was just being something just being circled around the NBA discussions. But yeah, I agree. It's a popularity contest. Hopefully we can overcome that, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I still think we have to
Phil,
realize that it's not just popularity, and he'll get in regardless. I think that Jalen Brunson's going to get in regardless. He might not get that starting spot because of, the popularity vote, but he's still going to be there.
Phil, I agree with you 100%, and I don't know if I've heard it so well articulated, the reasoning why, but I agree. It is a popularity contest, and I don't think he'll ever start throughout his career. I don't think he will ever. Now it's a higher percentage he gets All NBA first team than him starting for the All Star game because people who are actually educated and understand the game are voting for that metric opposed to All Star, which is a popularity contest. Net fans are voting for him. That's why he's fourth. But other NBA fans are not. International fans of other teams. Oh, I like the way Karl Anthony Towns shoots threes. I'm voting for him over whoever else it might be. But Brunson, why would you vote for Brunson if you're a casual when you have Donovan Mitchell highlights, LaMelo Ball highlights, Dame Lillard highlights? It makes sense. I'm also not crying over it. I think both him and Mikal Bridges will be named all-star reserves by the coaches and media and players, and we'll probably have 3 Knicks in the all-star game. What matters more to me is him and Cat both being all-NBA first team.
Yeah. And you got to think of it, which was a great point, at that position that they're going for, okay? Yeah. All of the people that are highlight players are in that position. Like, all those guys are highlight players. When it comes to the center position, who is the one that...
Your sound went out. I'm guessing you're leading to Joel Embiid.
who is the one center that is...
Sound went out.
You're muted, bro.
You muted, Phil. Looking very passionate, though.
Yeah. All right.
I wish I read sign language.
All right. Who's the one center that has more votes than Karl Anthony Towns? The one who's a highlight guy, Giannis. So when you look at it, it's Giannis. Like, Karl is getting highlights because he's a big who shoots the three well, who scores well. Regardless of what Brunson does in a game, we could be like, oh my gosh, that's one of the coolest things. And we'll be like, what the frick? ESPN didn't even talk about it last night.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's not necessarily highlight reel as much as it is great basketball, great footwork, great way of like being clutch in the final minutes of a game. Things that real basketball fans love and appreciate. But that's not what ESPN's put on the, thing. They're putting the LaMelo back and forth step back. Like, oh, snap, he broke his ankle 6 times. Yeah, they still lost by 38 points. But that doesn't matter. It's still the highlight. So it is what it is. Done with my rant.
Yeah, so I also want to add that I'm not upset or crying over spilt milk if Jalen Brunson doesn't start because LaMelo Ball is having an unbelievable season. My guy's averaging 30.7 assists and 5 rebounds. So if he ends up getting a start nod, more power to him. Donovan Mitchell, balling out. Cavs are number 1 team in the NBA. He's their point of attack. He's their best player. Again, if those guys supplant Brunson in the all-star votes, I'm not going to be upset because I don't think that's an unworthy person to take his spot. To me, it's more about the all-NBA, and that's where winning really matters.
Yeah.
And you know what else too? It's like you kind of, what? Kudos to Brunson for being a team player, being unselfish, sharing the wealth, and helping us set the culture so that we can average 30 assists a game. Like that's a type of team that can win a championship. But unfortunately, you get more shine when you average 30 points a game and you can't put the team on your back. Last year, Brunson was doing that. Let's say the Karl Anthony Town trade never happened. You know, Julius Randle was still out, and Brunson had to do what he had to do. He would average close to 30 again, and the numbers would look a lot different. And then eyes would open, maybe even the casuals be looking at it now because now it's a season and a half of him just being a 30-point per game scorer. But he doesn't have to. He's averaging less points. He's averaging more assists, but he's averaging less points. He's more efficient, but he's averaging less points. So sometimes, like the NBA casuals will say, okay, he's averaging less points. Maybe he's not playing as good. But for this team, we don't need him to do what he used to do last season. So that could be something to take into account with other NBA fans as well.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say about the All-Star thing is we got to also remember that with the first, I think it was like 10 or 12 games, Brunson didn't look like Brunson looks now. You know, Brunson had a rough start to the season. You know, so when you look at a guy like Donovan Mitchell that has been on since first tip-off of the first game, you can't knock the fact that he's getting votes, you know, and he's putting on for a city that like didn't even know if he was going to be there this year, you know, and he's the occasion and they've waited for this, you know, they've wanted this season. So you got to look and you got to go, okay, there's many reasons. Bottom line, all we can do is be loyal to our guys, vote for them daily. Let's see what happens. But like Lee said, at the end of the day, All-Star is cool, but is it really cool? Because all of us the next day will talk about how mediocre and stupid the game was anyway, and how no one really played, and how it was just a score fest back and forth of like who could be like the coolest open shot, you know, like all of us watch it for the 3-point contest anyway. So none of us are really caring about that game. We all pretty much talk to each other on text or whatever during it. So it doesn't matter. All NBA is what we really care about and where the real votes matter. So we'll focus on that. So last thing let's talk about before we head out. Shout out to Minnesota. They're still, you know, in it. They're only down 3, but Dante is diving left and right, causing issues for them. So I'm hoping that they can, you know, grab that lead. We can go into that second spot. But tomorrow night, OKC. Yes. What are your guys' thoughts? Woo! What are your predictions? What are you hoping for? Lee.
Man, what I'm hoping for and what the prediction might be, I think are very different. Man, this is a really tough one. We really need Mitch for this matchup. Mitchell Robinson, to me, is the X factor in any series. It's OKC, because one of the things that OKC still is weak on is offensive rebounding, as well as points in the paint. So you need someone as that last line of defense, because SGA is the best dribble penetrator in the entire league. And it's one of the reasons driving his MVP campaign. But the other thing, too, is, damn it, they force so many turnovers. I believe they're the first team in history to force more turnovers than the average assists, or more assists than the average turnovers, something like that. It's some like unbelievable metric. But they're forcing right now, they're averaging 11.8 turnovers. So they turn the ball over the least of the 30 teams in NBA. And then they also lead the lead in forcing turnovers in the NBA at 19, which goes up to 20.7 when they're at home, which they will be tomorrow night. This is a really good matchup for us. I think iHeart's insider knowledge of how our offense runs is going to hurt us because they already blitz the pick and roll, and they actually blitz everything. They're really, really adept at playing the passing lanes and causing deflections. They have multiple guys topping the lead in deflections per game. That's going to cause us a lot of problems. I think Karl Anthony Towns, the first half, is going to struggle getting to his spots. I think he's probably going to have 3 or 4 turnovers in the first half until he adjusts to what he's seeing defensively, because no one is as fierce of a defensive juggernaut as the OKC Thunder. They play some of the best defense I've ever seen in my entire life. They're not the old school half-court set. They're more of full-court transition defense, and they're swarming, and they play 11, sometimes 12-man rotation. And they got guards like Isaiah Joe and Kaysen Wallace and Alex Caruso that are all really high-level defenders. They're tough, man. I think they're going to the finals for a reason. Their struggle is at the three-point line. If we can really keep them out of the paint, and no, I say keep them. I'm not talking about SGA because you can't keep them out of the paint. I'm talking about more of the Dorts, the Carusos, Hart getting offensive rebounds. If you can limit that and really force them to take off-balance, difficult shots on the perimeter, which is not their strength, that's how you can win. You can't let them play a half-court game. You can't let them get their pick and roll in action. You really have to do a lot of ball denial with SGA and really try to force them to be a perimeter team, which is not their strong suit.
Yeah, I love that breakdown, Lee. I love that breakdown. I remember when we played them last year, and
Thanks,
it
bro.
was hell. And they're even better this year. I remember them really turning us over a lot. So I'm with Lee. I don't expect it to be a pretty game. It's going to be nasty, dirty, grimy, muck 'em up type of game. Last season, I feel like it took us. Like a half to get adjusted to it, and I think we got back into the game last season because of our offensive rebounding. We're not the same offensive rebounding team we were last year, but we do have more spacing. So, and we also have two wings that we didn't have last year that we can match up with them better with. I remember Williams; he really killed us last season too. And we have OG now. We have Mikal now to match up with them. So I do feel like we'll do better than last season. Eventually, when we play them again, I think it's going to take us an adjustment period to get used to how intense their defense is. I'm a Knicks fan, so I'm gonna say they're going to win. They can win for sure. It's just going to take some. It's going to take some time to kind of figure out the defenses because they, like you said, we are a high passing team. They're a high turnover. They are a high team that likes to, deflect the ball. So it's going to take a lot of. It's going to be a lot for us to kind of make the right passes and get used to the activity level.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I'm looking at Capo's post. He said Nick's going to have to take and make plenty looks from three to win. I honestly disagree with that. I think that we need to see if the three's falling in the beginning of the game. And if it's not, we've seen just like 2 or 3 games ago that we barely shot the three and we were incredibly effective from the two. And that's what made us win the game because we were realizing that we weren't taking shots that were falling from three. So we pivoted. Like if we live and die by the three, I don't think we win the game. I think if we see that the three is falling and we utilize that and continue to build on that, then yes. But if we see that the three is not falling and we continue to chuck up three after three after three, I think we get way too far behind OKC to even make it a game. Like that is the kind of team you do not want to fall incredibly far behind from because they're going to continue to score left and right. Like that's what they're going to do. So if we are missing three after three after three and continue to chuck them up and they're getting two or three, and we're not doing anything, I think the game gets out of control quick. So I think we have to be like very open and honest with what is or isn't falling in that first quarter and build around that. Like we've seen that Mikal is a guaranteed bucket. So if we lose, if we miss like 6-7 threes back to back, there's no reason for Mikal not to come down the next 3 times, hit an easy 2-pointer to shorten the gap, and then we can try the three again. But we can't keep on going when it's not falling at all and expect to stay in that game, in my opinion.
I think I might have to respectfully disagree with that. I think if we get into a 2 versus 2, OKC is going to win. OKC is the best 2-point scoring team in the NBA by a mile. SGA is historically one of the greatest dribble penetrators once he gets inside the level at getting 2 points and getting fouls, and he's unbelievable free throw shooter. I think we need to shoot threes. It just has to be quality threes. There's a reason why we're top 3 in the NBA in percentage. It's because we don't overtake them. And that's really been a choice by the 5 starters to really rely on each other to create space for one another, but also lots of off-ball ball screens as well. You've been seeing an increase in that from everybody from Karl-Anthony Towns to OG Anunoby are setting off-ball screens. It's one of the reasons why Mikal Bridges got unlocked, was that type of movement and allowing him to catch the ball open instead of trying to create a shot while we already have single coverage. The key to me is storing 3 points to their 2. That's going to be how we beat OKC, and Karl-Anthony Towns is going to be a really, really big part of that. Not just because of his ability to hit the 3, but him as a decoy as well. That's what did our guys easier driving opportunities.
And I agree when the 3's hitting. But if it's not, so let's say we go 1 for 8 for 3 in that first quarter, you still want to just keep chucking up 3s? Because
if we rely on trying to move to, like, say we start running action to the post to Karl-Anthony Towns, yeah, we're going to lose. I think against OKC, there's a reason why they're historically unbelievable in terms of offense and defense. They're top. I think they're the only team that's top 3 in offensive and defensive net rating. They're unbelievable. They share the ball, they pass the ball, but they have the true MVP this season in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And yeah, I think if our 3 ball is not falling, I do not think we win. That doesn't just go for this game. That goes for the series. I think we're going to face them in the finals as well.
All right. Well, I think that game will tell. I'm hoping that we don't have to find out and the 3 starts falling early in that game. But it's funny because you look in the chat and some people are like, Lee, I love your take. And then the other person's like, I agree with Phil 100%. So we're split on that, on whether or not we live or die by the 3. I think that when it falls, I want to keep pushing it until it doesn't. But if it doesn't fall, I don't want to keep pushing it till we're completely out of the game, especially in the first half, because there's always the possibility that we stay close enough within that first half that even though they may still be ahead, the game's still a game, and then we can revive and try the 3 again back to back in that third quarter. Like, that still gives us hope. But to live and die by the 3, if it's not falling that early in the game, to me is just giving them the game.
I understand that point of view. I just want to substantiate my argument with one more point, is that I think to beat OKC, you have to play unpredictable basketball. They're really adept at scouting, and they're really adept at watching tape of the opposing team. It's part of their culture. And if our 3-point shot isn't falling, they're going to use that blitzing in the pick and roll, and also just the constant hedging against screens or against the 3-point line or against the post. They're going to start picking the ball out from us when we're trying to force feed Cat or force feed Brunson or force feed Mikal Bridges. That's when you start playing predictable basketball. So if our 3 is not falling, we just have to get more open, or we have to extend the rotation to where Shamit's getting some looks, but Bride's getting looks, Payne is getting looks. That's the key. It's not just having the same 3 guys shoot 3s or the same 3 guys trying to shoot themselves out of a funk. It needs to be a spread offense. Multiple guys getting really high efficient, good looks from the perimeter. And that comes from off-ball movement and off-ball ball screens, which has been a fingerprint of Tibbs' offense in the month of December. So I don't have fear there, nor do I have fear that our 3-point won't be falling. But this is not Orlando. You can beat Orlando by only making 8 threes a game. You can't beat OKC that way. You must store 3 points to their 2.
So question. You said with OKC that they are the kind of team that will scout and plan accordingly, and they will pick apart. So with that same sentiment, you earlier said that we are known as a team that is that good and that effective from 3. So do you not think that if they're scouting on how good we are from the 3, that would be part of to say, hey, we can't give up the easy 3. We have to make sure that we lock them down at what they're doing best, was hitting the 3. So if, like, both can't be true, that they plan and they prepare for their team that they're playing and know them well, and then also believe that they're going to allow us to do what we apparently are doing best, which is shooting the 3.
Great question. There's a reason why the 3-point shot has become such a huge modifier in the NBA landscape, really creating the largest discrepancy between the teams who are competitive and the teams who not, is because a 3 is essentially unguardable. When action is ran to where you're having a wide open 3, whether it be off of a ghost screen or a pin down, or you have 5 guys who can all go 5 out, you can't guard it. You just have to hope to some degree, but they miss. But when you move inside the level and you start playing within the mid-range, at the post, and the dunker spot, that can be shut down. That's where schemes are in play, and especially if you're a team that blitzes like OKC, and you run a 12-man rotation where you constantly have fresh leads, all defensive-minded players, that's where you become predictable. You cannot guard with a three-point shot. A lot of three-point shots, you have to be off. That's how you hope to win. Is they just don't miss. Against Dallas, Dallas needed Boston to lose, to miss every three-point shot they took in the finals. They didn't, so we got blown out. But it comes down to that. New York Knicks are efficient. We're not a team that wins because we shoot a lot of threes. It's because we shoot good threes when they're open, and that's why I'm not worried about our three-point percentage against OKC, because you really can't guard it when you got 5 guys that are shooting 40% or better.
All right, well, we shall see what happens.
Live again debate. Sometimes you gotta know when to shut up.
yeah. You know, me personally, I want to rely on the Mikal Bridges 70% from the mid, but we'll see how that goes. Jay, I'll throw this question to you. With Isaiah Hartenstein being the guy that we have to go up against, obviously he doesn't know everything because, some of the guys that he played with are no longer there. But do you think that do we have to play a little bit differently, knowing that he knows Tibbs' system so well? Like knowing that part of, this offense clicking the way that it did and moving the way that it did actually started when he took that center position. Like, because if you look at how the offense moved or didn't move before, when it was Randall and Mitch, as opposed to when it was Isaiah Hartenstein and the ball started moving a lot more, and there was a lot more assists and facilitating that was happening within our starting lineup. Do you think that his understanding of the Tibbs system plays a role in tomorrow's game?
Yes and no. It's like, because he's going to be guarding Cat, you know what I mean? I don't think it's going to be to benefit him as well, just because Cat is so versatile, right? Where like Cat's gonna be making a lot of plays from the 3-point line. Guy's gonna have to be cutting. He's not gonna be the wing that's gonna be guarding them, the guys that you're cutting. It's gonna be the responsibility of the OKC wings to figure out when to cut and take those passes away. So although he knows the plays, like it's not necessarily his responsibility to guard on that. And he's not going to be, he's a quarterback defender. Like he likes to be by the rim and say, hey, somebody's here, switch, But when Cat is pulling everybody out, it changes everything. So like, even though he kind of knows our system, it's not really to his benefit unless maybe Cat goes in the paint more, then maybe he'll have more of the advantage. But I think Cat is just so versatile. It could help, but I don't think it's going to be that well. And also, when you think about the versatility of Cat, I think about the versatility of Joel Embiid. And Joel Embiid is still a different animal because of the way he draws fouls. But, Hartenstein, Lee likes to say, got dog walked by Joel Embiid all the time during the playoffs. And I think he's one of those guys. Cat is one of those guys who's as versatile or almost as versatile as Joel Embiid. The only thing that Joel Embiid does better than Cat is draw fouls, to me. And I'm not even making a joke. Like sometimes I feel like I'm not even joking. Like sometimes I really feel like Cat should just watch Joel Embiid tapes just to learn how to flop, because Cat doesn't get calls that Joel Embiid does, like straight up. And I'm not even joking. I'm dead serious. So like I feel like Cat is still going to give. I still think Cat is going to give Hartenstein problems. It's going to be a team defense that has to slow Cat down. And I don't think it's going to be to their benefit that much, because Hartenstein wasn't playing on the top 2 offense in the NBA. We are, though. He hasn't learned how to defend this top 2 offense. He learned how to play the offense where we had no shooters and not as good cutters.
Yeah. So this is a great point, and I'm going to ask you, Lee, with the one thing that Cat has been struggling with in these last games has been foul trouble. How do you think this plays out with Isaiah Hartenstein being as physical as he is in the paint and being very similar in the can draw a foul, can drive, can dish, brings multiple things to the table. Do you think Isaiah Hartenstein causes an issue for us foul trouble wise?
Yes. I kind of disagree with Jay Ellis a little bit when it comes to Isaiah Hartenstein knowing the system. Jay is definitely right. He's never played with Mikal Bridges or Karl-Anthony Towns. This is a way more talented team than Hartenstein was on, and that was pretty talented too. It's like one quarter away from going to the East Conference Finals. But Karl-Anthony Towns is absolutely going to dog walk Isaiah Hartenstein. Like Towns is playing at a level higher than what Embiid was in the playoffs, or Miles Turner was in the playoffs in Indiana. Cat's playing at the MVP level. Now, does that mean that he might get suckered into some cheap calls on the defensive side in this Hartenstein? For sure, because Hartenstein's a very high IQ center, and he's used often by OKC, as he was in New York, as a passing hub as well. So there's some opportunities there, I think, to draw Cat away from the paint and get him foul trouble, having a guard Hartenstein making quick decisions, whether it's a short roll or just on the elbow trying to find cutters. But on the opposite side, Karl-Anthony Towns is going to destroy him. Isaiah Hartenstein has no idea what's coming. He has yet to face a big with Karl-Anthony Towns' 5-level ability yet, or his IQ, or his shooting. So it's going to be very entertaining. Grab your popcorn and watch your favorite German get absolutely cooked on the low block, in the high post, on the perimeter. It's going to be a shit show. But Isaiah Hartenstein does know where and when guys get their shots in Tibbs' system. And that level of communication. Tibbs always said that Hart was a very loud communicator on defense. He's going to know, okay, I might not have played with Bridges or Cat, but I know where those spots are on the floor, but those two roles are supposed to be, because I saw RJ in that position, I saw OG in that position, I saw Randall in that position. So he's going to know in that regard where guys are supposed to, within Tibbs' read and react, where the shot is going to happen within the ball rotation. That's going to cause problems, because he's going to send those blitzes to him and cause turnovers, or poke the ball out and then you get out in transition, which if you watch OKC tape, so many of their points stored in the highlights, it's them by themselves because someone poked the ball out at a pass and got an easy 2 in the lane.
Yeah. Yeah. And one thing to point out is Cat does have foul problems, when it comes to aggressive bigs. But there were times in last season, I haven't watched enough. Like I watch OKC games when I can. But Hartenstein can get in some big foul trouble as well with aggressive bigs. So that to me is something that we need to utilize. Like we need to try and get Cat some points in the paint, let him be a little bit aggressive, because if it comes down to which, big man gets in foul trouble first, I want us to be the ones that, have the upper hand in that, that they're having to sit Isaiah Hartenstein for minutes as opposed to us having to sit Karl-Anthony Towns for foul minutes. So in my opinion, Karl has to utilize that multiple levels of scoring, make it to where Isaiah Hartenstein is guessing what he's going to do and causing him to, pick up those fouls early in the game, so that leaves the opportunities for us while he's on the bench and they don't have Chet to be able to, utilize their lack of a actual aggressive big man on the court. So I think we need to, be the ones that are ahead of that instead of allowing them to get us in foul trouble. We need to try to attack Isaiah Hartenstein early as well.
Good point.
So Krim said,
Facts.
OKC,
and you don't want to forget about their bench.
Tired. Yeah, and he's incredible as well. So, hold on. Final shot. There's 3.1 seconds left. All right. Boston is up by 3. So before we end this chat today, we are going to see if we're in that second spot. Dante's been incredible. They were actually down 6, and Dante hauled butt down and faked the shot and then went up for a 3 and drew the foul and hit all 3 foul shots. So now they're down 3 with 3.1 seconds left on the clock. So
Randall masterclass, 27, 9, and 7.
Anthony Edwards just missed it from 3. Game over. All right. Well,
Wah, wah. You had one
Julius
job.
Randle, though.
you know,
Randle, 27, 9, and 7. Very solid night from my dog, Julius Randle. I will always love Julius Randle. I'm just loving him more from afar.
One job.
I like Julius Randle. I will say I like him better on another team. I could say good job, Julius Randle, and it doesn't affect our wins or losses. So good job, Julius.
I used to think he was going to be traded for Jay Crowder. So to get Karl-Anthony Towns for him, I mean, holy
Oh my
hell!
God,
Wow,
I
that's
was-
beyond my wildest dreams, man.
That's very big facts. And thank you, Capo 1291. Appreciate the compliment. We've been rocking for about 2 hours, so we are going to wrap up. Thank you guys for joining us. We appreciate it. This was an impromptu Knicks Nightcap KOT post-game collaboration. And to the rest of the team, I freaking miss y'all. Ebony, I need you to get on the show with me, hang out. Mr. Ryan, waiting for you to come back as well. Looking forward to it. Fritz, appreciate you. Eru, Apollo, I hate you guys for backing out on me today, but we'll connect next week. But to everybody else, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. This channel is one of the realest out there. Like, I'm going to say that straight up, and I can say that because I didn't build it. I built something before. It came collapsing down. I was ready to walk away, and I'm here because the people behind it are worth being behind. And they're people that, I can continue to do this with and find joy in it because it is an actual community. Like, we want to build each other up. No one is here trying to build each other, their own platform. We're trying to build together. We're trying to rise with each other instead of leaving others behind. I know that there's other channels, there's other content creators, stuff like that it's this guy, it's Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5. That's not how it is here. None of us are trying to be Michael. We're all just trying to build this together, and we're all trying to take each other to that next level. We challenge each other because iron sharpens iron, and that's not just Knicks talk. That's life talk. Like, we're in a chat throughout the week, encouraging each other in life and in sports and in everything else that we put our hands to. So support this network because they're worth supporting.
No, all facts, man. Great people. Talented people with no egos is a very hard combination to find. And blessed to be doing this with people who are talented with no egos and work hard and do all of that. So yeah, very thankful to have the team we built. And Ebony, every other week, people were asking for Ryan and Ebony on the show. Somebody literally commented like a game ago, hey, is Ebony still on the program? Yes, Ebony is still on the program. We just waiting for Ebony. So love you, Ebony. Can't wait to have you back.
And I also want to add that I've been dealing with some really severe depression and anxiety. My mom is going through a really rough stretch in her health and her situation in life. And it's really worn on me. I mean, this is the lowest I've been in quite a while. And I was on a pretty good ride for about 8 years. This has really torn me down, even though I don't look at when the cameras are off and I'm left to myself in my apartment, that shit creeps in. But a miracle happened because my boy Phil invited us onto the show, and Jay wasn't able to do the post game. So all three of us are here together. And I tell Jay constantly, there's no one else. My favorite thing in life is no one else I rather talk Knicks with than my boy Jay Ellis. And I got Phil here as well, my primo from another mother. So this has been great. I really need this. I need a little debate. Sometimes I just want to say the opposite just to get into a little back and forth because I think that people love it. And it's great to hear two smart basketball minds. Yeah, I'm putting myself on that. Talk about ball from different perspectives. And I really need this podcast. I need this tonight, and it's great to talk about a W at the same time.
Well, we love you, bro. I'm thankful for you. And guys, if you're in the chat, do us a favor. That's real vulnerability right there from my guy Lee. Keep them in your thoughts. Keep them in your prayers throughout the week. Life can get hard. And being able to know that people are in your corner, people are backing you, not just saying that they're going to lift you up and pray for you, but they actually do throughout the week. So please lift up our guy Lee. keep his thoughts, keep his family in your prayers, and check up on people every once in a while, whether it's people that you're watching or your friends. A lot of times we expect everyone's got it all Gucci, and we don't. So look out for each other, check up on your people. If you haven't seen somebody around for a while, check in on them. But we appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for rocking with us tonight. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Post it on your Twitter, post it on your Instagrams, let people watch it in the replay gang. And like I said, let's get that push to 10K. This channel deserves it. They've put in hard work, and that's why I wanted to come in and be a part of it, because they got the same mentality of putting in that grind. So appreciate you guys. And until next week, we'll catch you. Be with these guys tomorrow in the post game, I'm assuming. And then next week, I'll be back with my guys Thursday, 8 p.m., same time, same network. Hopefully, same people in the chat. So we appreciate you guys so much. And until next time, God bless. Deuces.
This is the moment we waited for. Everything you want is right here. We gon' give them what they came for. We gon' take it up from last year. Shoot 'em my shot, boy, I'm long range. Me and the team on the same thing. Stayed down, never switched up. Only thing changed was the game. I'm in the zone now. Nothing can change what we on now. When I pull up, know it's going down. Foot on the gas, ain't no slowing down. Aiming for